Hi folks, and welcome to Breaking Woke, how to identify, debunk and dismantle politically correct ideas. I'm Douglas Kruger, author of the global new book Political Correctness Does More Harm Than Good. Today we'll debunk 3 sacred cows on the left. One is that they are champions of diversity and inclusion, rather than censorious bullies who exclude half the population. 2, that diversity programs help to end racism. That if ending racism is the goal, diversity programs are the way to do it. And 3, that diversity is always inherently a good thing, something to be sought out in all circumstances. Let's start with that last one. Is diversity uniformly a good thing? Can we make the simple statement, diversity is good? The answer is, it depends. It depends on the circumstances, and it depends on the goal. And that is always the answer. You cannot simply make the blanket statement, diversity is good in and of itself. You have to ask what the goal is, what the desired outcome is, otherwise it is a nonsensical statement. Here's a simple example. You have a basketball team. Your basketball team is constituted exclusively, monolithically, uniformly of one demographic, one only, tall, athletic, black men, and that is all. And let's just go further, just for the sake of illustration, who all descended from one particular place in Africa. They are ethnically the same. That is not a diverse team. However, it's probably the strongest team in the championships, even though it is demographically unvaried. If we accept that diversity is always a good thing, then we must necessarily add a small, weak, white guy to the mix, because that will make things better. Of course, diversity is not a good thing in and of itself. Diversity, the answer to the question is, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? And it depends on that. What's the desired outcome? Without that information, you can't make that statement. It'd be like saying power is a good thing. Well, no, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. What does the power do? What are the desired or expected outcomes? Without that information, you cannot make the statement that power is good. It is indifferent, it is simply a force. So what is the force aimed at? What is it trying to achieve? Now take a more difficult example. European societies, European nations, and mass immigration. Is diversity a good thing? Once again, the answer is, it depends. If the goal is peaceful living within a nation, then dramatically rising crime rates reveal immediately that the answer is no, diversity is not a good thing, unless you have other goals in place, in which case the debate opens up once again. So that's the answer to the first question, is diversity inherently a good thing? The answer is always, it depends. It depends on the goal, it depends on the outcome you're trying to achieve. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And that brings us to the second sacred cow on the left. They believe in diversity. I don't think they do. I think they believe in the most superficial form of diversity imaginable, which is skin color. They believe that skin color equals diversity, and variance in skin color equals maximum diversity. But when it comes to the diversity that really matters, diversity of thought, diversity of perspective or world view, my experience is that the left are censorious bullies who insist that everyone must think like them. We'll back that up shortly. So, skin color seems to be the contingent for diversity among leftist institutions. The left will argue that skin color is diversity. I think that's racist. However, they will argue that skin color informs experience, and that's why skin color is the basis of diversity. I believe that argument is doubly racist. Let me explain. In the first instance, it assumes that because of skin color, one group is uniformly treated in a certain way by others. And that's the first instance of racism built into this idea, which accuses those who interact with anyone of a particular skin color of uniform racism. All the time. Every occasion, every interaction, always. It's a cartoonish caricature in which this group acts that way and that group acts that way. And no one is a thinking individual. No one diverges from the mold. And there are no instances in which someone from the first group might actually treat everyone from every group with simple courtesy and good manners, regardless of skin color. 2 seconds experience in the real world puts paid to that idea and reveals it for the ridiculous stereotype that it is. But that's not where the racism ends. I said that it was doubly racist. It is racist the other way around, in its second assumption, which is that if you are a victim-based skin color group, you also have no option of reacting in any other way than as a victim. That's it for you. You are oppressed with a capital O, and that is your primary identity. You have always lived this way, you always will live this way, and there is no option of a reasoning individual who does not spend their life reacting to the other. You don't have that option because you are that demographic. In the real world, these groups are not these monolithic caricatures of people. They are individuals who experience the world differently and come to different conclusions. So skin color is not the measure of diversity. What should be? Thought content. And here we see the real problem. Take the Humanities Department of a modern left-leaning university, or just about any other institution, including the media globally, but we'll stick with varsities. Humanities is at the heart of everything. Philosophy, which is the basis of all disciplines, including law and so forth, social sciences, politics and so forth. This department, this area of study, largely informs what the world becomes, and they are almost exclusively, increasingly, and radically on the left, and they bully and censor those who are not. Now here's the ruse. The universities will be able to show you people of every nation and color, of varying levels of ability or disability, and of differing sexual orientations, and it all looks so diverse. So long as they are all on the ideological left. Ask the department, how many conservatives do you have? How many libertarians do you have? How many classical liberals do you have? If you literally have one side of the ideological spectrum and not the other, you are not diverse. Instead, you have different packaging for a single idea. You have one compliant worldview, one aggressively policed philosophy, one single offering to the world, wrapped in various colors of wrapping paper, and therefore you call yourself diverse. But this is a blind spot for the left, and they can't see it. When debating with the left, they don't believe that this really occurs. So here are two blatant and unignorable, undeniable examples of this one recently, which you can use to drag them grumbling towards self-awareness of what bullies they are on the ideological spectrum and how little they believe in real diversity. The first one is the big one globally at the moment, and that is liberal big tech censorship. It started with Twitter, Facebook et al. Kicking Donald Trump off of their platforms. Now, regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, the man is the US, or was at the time, the US president. But then it went further than that. They went on a purge spree and got rid of conservative groups all over the world, simply kicking them off. One good example of that was the #WalkAway movement, which was a Latino-based group in which these individuals told their story of discontent about the Liberal Democratic Party. Gone. The group was erased. It was deleted. So that's the first one. It's the obvious one. Here's one, another good example that really drives the point home. The 2018 Women's March. Now, the left is largely confused about what constitutes a woman today. They don't seem to think that it is biologically determined. It's not determined by chromosomes, genetics or sex. It is determined largely by subjective feelings, if one were to listen to the unscientific left on this topic. However, when pro-life women registered their intent to march with the Women's March, they were told not to bother. They were the wrong kind of women. Now, do you want to tell me how in a tolerant, inclusive, diverse society it is possible to be a wrong kind of woman? In fact, in any society, how is it possible, fundamentally, to be a wrong kind of woman? You either are a woman or you aren't. What they're showing here is that as long as you are on the ideological left, then we will accept diversity. But if you represent the other half of the scale, the other half of that entire nation, you're not a woman because we don't recognize you. That's how much they actually believe in diversity. So, what's a better way forward? 4 things. 1. The grown-up response to, for example, a new teammate joining the team is not what color is she, what color is he, but rather, can he or she help us meet our goals? That's it. Anything outside of that is social engineering, and it is playing politics with human lives. If you believe that all humans are equal, you simply don't do that. Number 2, if you mean it, if you really believe in diversity and it's something you want to promote, then look for ideological diversity, not skin color. That's the big one. Using skin color, diversity becomes a ruse word on the left. It's as much diversity as you like, as long as it's this side of the belief spectrum. Number 3, ditch affirmative action policies. They hurt the very people they are supposed to help. This is a prime example of how political correctness does more harm than good. It poses as kindness. It announces itself as righteousness with good intentions. But if you follow the policies and you actually see the outcomes, they do more detriment than they do good. And black intellectuals who have studied the matter economically will provide you with the data that proves it. Black economist and historian Dr. Thomas Sowell, has spent several decades proving the downsides of this policy and saying it is a force for destruction, not good, in a series of books. So if your goal is genuinely to empower people of different races and colors and to get rid of racism, here's what you do. You start by removing legal impediments to access, such as apartheid laws or Jim Crow laws. That's got to go. That is fundamentally unfair, fundamentally evil. Then you get out of the way and you let human beings meet and work with one another. You do that in an environment free of state-imposed social engineering. Now, to most on the left, this is too much of a leap of faith. They don't believe in the goodness of people sufficiently that they think they can be trusted to meet one another, get on with one another, and learn to interact interculturally. They believe that they have to impose this via the mechanism of the state. It is an incredibly arrogant thing. If you have good faith in people, leave them to sort themselves out. Get the evil legal restrictions out of the way and do no more. Now again, see Thomas Sowell on why it not only works, but it works faster and better. It relies on faith in people, and that's where it falls apart for the left. Where the state is not playing favorites, social capital and trust accumulate faster. Where the state forces things, social capital and trust are destroyed. It actually promotes racism rather than resolving it. And the goal is to get rid of racism. I'm on board with that one. Number 4. Don't ban opposing voices. Dear left, you can't shut up everyone you don't like. You don't get to say, this entire world belongs to us and you're not allowed to play. For heaven's sake. You're not a communist, come on. 2 videos back on this channel, I spoke about free speech and its importance. And I spoke about the philosophical importance, 2 major things about it. 1, it permits the maximum number of voices to speak so that human beings can choose from the maximum possible number of options. Choose truth from the widest possible selection. It is a very pro-science view. And 2, the possibility of free speech gives rise to the possibility of discovering that you yourself were wrong. And this is how it gets rid of radical views rather than promoting them. If you have an aspiring neo-Marxist or an aspiring neo-Nazi, and these folks are allowed to speak, others may correct them. If they are not allowed to speak, they get driven underground. The ideas become more radical, not less so. Finally, the conservative track record, to I think what would be most people's surprise and astonishment, is far superior when it comes to ending racism and promoting genuine diversity in societies. Take, for example, the fact that conservative Christian Abraham Lincoln fought to free the slaves. Now, here's one that I cover in Political Correctness Does More Harm Than Good, that most people today would be shocked by and probably wouldn't even believe. The Liberal Democratic Party vehemently opposed the civil rights movement in the United States, but today take credit for it. Were you aware of that? their history in terms of the promotion of racial egalitarianism and equality is dreadful. There's an interesting stat that comes out of studying emancipation in the United States, which says that all of the slaves were owned by Democrats at the time of emancipation. There has been quite an uproar on this one. Author Dsouza was the first to point it out, and he set out a challenge. He said, find me a single Republican who owned a slave. And after much uproar, Democrats came back with one example, one man, that Dsouza was then able to debunk and disprove. So the progressive, liberal, politically correct Democratic Party has an atrocious record in terms of promoting racial harmony and true diversity. If you really want freedom, if you really want to get rid of hang-ups about race, it appears that what you need are conservatives at the helm. That idea might shock most people, but the history bears it out. So, 3 sacred cows on the left. Number 1, that they are champions of diversity and inclusion rather than censorious bullies who exclude half the population. You are not the right kind of woman, and our academic institutions are monolithically left. 2, diversity programs help to end racism. No, they destroy emerging social capital, which relies on you letting go and trusting human beings. You've got to get rid of the evil laws that actually oppress any racial group or demographic group. Then you've got to let go. That's the hard part. And number 3, that diversity is inherently a good thing to be sought in all circumstances. What's the goal? What's the desired outcome? With that in mind, you can answer the question, is diversity a good thing? If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to the channel. If this content is helping you, please do feel free to share it with people who are interested in articulating proper logical arguments against the rise of political correctness and resurgent Marxism. And do please consider looking at the book as well, Political Correctness Does More Harm Than Good. It's now available globally from Audible as an audiobook read by the author.